donate it to Armenia, that would be a good idea.
I think it's good, and the other thing that would help is that this technology is very powerful technology, and it's a technology for the young people in Armenia to learn, to become skilled at, so that they can make a living at it and distribute their know-how and technology elsewhere in the world.
Dr. Damadian, thank you for joining us again.
Sure.
A few weeks ago, the unthinkable happened when you were not nominated to receive...
I was nominated.
Oh, you were nominated.
I was nominated for the Nobel, but I wasn't awarded.
But you were not awarded, right. And we believe this decision was fraudulent, unjust, and politically motivated. And if the Nobel Committee does not include you in receiving the Nobel Prize, we're going to think that the Nobel Committee and the Nobel Prize will lose its credibility and value. It's going to become like a joke. They can't be arrogant and unjust and be taken seriously in the future. What are your thoughts about this whole thing?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, the first thing to recognize is that what happened in this year's award was not an accident or an oversight, because they had the power to grant the award to 3, so that they had to go out of their way to explicitly exclude me. And, from the way I see it, that's manifestly unjust. I mean, I have been criticized for saying what I believe, that had I never been born, there would be no M.R.I. today, and I insist that that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the record of history proves it, because NMR, which is what M.R.I. was originally called until they changed its name, came into existence in 1945. And if Lauterbur and Mansfield were going to use their gradient, why didn't they use it before I made my discovery in 1970? Mm-hmm. They had 25 years in which to do it.
Yes.
And I think the right answer is they had nothing to use it on. It wasn't until I discovered the cancer signal that they had anything to use it with. They had both used gradients extensively. They knew all about gradients. Why didn't they just use it? And the only answer that you come up with is they didn't have anything to use it on.
Mm-hmm. But why would the Nobel Committee, go this route?
Well, I think that's just a simple example of the of clubhouse exclusion. I mean, the people they gave it to were members of the committee of PhDs in the NMR clubhouse, mm-hmm. and I was an outsider. I mean, I'm an MD, and they have their clubhouse, and that clubhouse has excluded me from everything from the first day.
But indirectly, the Nobel Committee is saying that they're above the law and above all the facts. For example, what the United States Supreme Court, said about you, and they're with you, and the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, gave you the National Medal of Technology at the time.
And importantly, by the way, jointly with Lauterbur, who did get the Nobel. So the Nobel Committee had to explicitly excise me and include Lauterbur in order to do what they did.
But can they go above the law? I mean,
well, no. I think that you're right. I mean, they're a lawless bunch that answers. They're not accountable to anybody. They answer to no one. We call them on the phone. They say, "I'm sorry, we can't disclose any information for 50 years." I mean, so they go ahead and trash somebody's life. There's no court of appeal, and they're accountable to nobody. I mean, and on top of that, they interpret Alfred Nobel's will any way they feel like. And one time they interpret it one way, next time they interpret it the other way, and they do whatever they please. And they're accountable to no one.
But, Dr. Damadian, they are accountable because they are going to lose their credibility. Aren't they afraid of that? They don't care?
Well, I can't think for them.
I know.
The only thing that I can say is what we've been forced to do since, as near as I can tell, they're not accountable to anybody. They violate Alfred Nobel's will left and right. The only thing I can say now is we've been forced to make them accountable to world opinion. They got to be accountable to somebody. They just can't go out and trash reputations and victimize people by robbing them of their life's work and be not accountable for it.
Well, they will be in the media and the newspapers, and they will lose their credibility. I'm sure they're smarter than that.
Well,
you know,
it's hard for me to be confident of that. I mean, the secretary of the Nobel Committee told one reporter that people have to understand that humanity is divided into two groups. I mean, this was in print. Humanity is divided into two groups: those who have a Nobel Prize and those who wish they did.
Well,
consider the scope of that statement. I mean, you'd like to ask the poor man in Bangladesh who has trouble feeding his family what his aspirations are for the Nobel Prize.
And that statement is very godlike. It's like they're suffering from this complex. They're like gods above the law.
Well, it's arrogant. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you say such a thing, that the world's people are divided into two groups? Those who have the Nobel Prize and those who wish they did. I mean, that's
instead of giving a logical explanation of why they decided that way, they're just making these arrogant statements.
Well, they're attempting to essentially excuse themselves for a deliberate exclusion.
Yeah, but it's the ostrich syndrome. They're just sticking their heads in the sand, and people are just seeing through them.
See, I think it's also important to realize that they had to explicitly violate Nobel's will in order to do what they did, because Nobel's will makes a very specific definition of which prizes are to go for which achievements. Now, in physics, he says the Nobel Prize in Physics for discovery or invention. In chemistry, says the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for discovery or a new process. In medicine, he says for a discovery.
Yes, only.
Period.
Yes.
Now, he does not allow an invention to be given a Nobel Prize in medicine, because he allows the invention to receive the Nobel Prize in physics, but not in medicine, and it's perfectly explicit. Secondly, what Lauterbur and Mansfield did is an invention. They introduced a technique for implementing my discovery.
Yes.
So they're not allowed to get it under Nobel's will.
Yes, it's just like saying...
What Nobel's will explicitly says should be given for the discovery, and I'm the one who made the discovery.
Yes.
So, they... And then in 54, I have to be sure, but I think that's right, they did exactly the opposite. When they gave out the Nobel Prize for the polio vaccine, they excluded Dr. Jonas Salk for the vaccine, arguing that under Nobel's will, they can't give it for an invention or a technique, which is what Jonas Salk did, and that he was, by invention, merely implementing what those who discovered the polio, who isolated the polio virus, did. So they gave it to the isolators or the discoverers of the polio virus, explicitly arguing that they can't give it for technique or invention under Alfred Nobel's will. Now, they can't have it both ways. I mean, it can't possibly be legal to exclude invention and technique in 1954, arguing Nobel's will, and then turn around and give it exclusively to technique and invention in 2003. They can't both be right.
Yes. Well, Dr. Damadian, what advice do you give the Armenian audience? What can the Armenian audience do?
Well, I would be grateful if they would write letters.
Write letters
to the Nobel Committee, and and just simply say it's outrageous. It doesn't have to say more than that.
Yes.
It's the volume of letters that are going to count.
Yes. Well, we'll do that, and And good luck to you, and good luck to everybody. And we would like to see your name in all the history books of the world as the inventor of the MRI machine. And the honor is ours.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, you're welcome. You are welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.